Hello and welcome to this third video in the Let's Build a House series. Now, I glossed over the colors I picked in the last video and I realized that this might actually be something to explain a bit further than I actually did. Because colors do really make or break your map, and it might be something that is very dependent on personal taste. But I think there are a few rules that you can apply and things that you might take into consideration that's going to help make it a bit more realistic. So what you will see in most of my maps is that I don't use very screaming, vibrant or bright colors. I often keep them a bit toned down. Like here, I always try to put them a bit further, to make it really practical, a bit further to the left side of the color palette than to the right. Because if you, for example, have, let's take a few chairs here. We'll put them outside for a moment, turn off the grids, there, there, and there. If you take colors that are a bit further to the right, they become very in your face, is I think the best kind of description, and also if you put them a bit further up high. And this is something that I usually relate to new furniture, things that have been taken care of extremely well. And that's something that you'd probably encounter often in palaces or a house of a high lord. Those often have the money and time to take proper care of their furniture, or have servants do it for them, of course. But in your average farmhouse or places where, you know, money is tight, very vibrant colors usually don't make that much sense, in my opinion. Especially not if you have like your whole color palette be a bit toned down. Then these things that are very vibrant and very bright really pop out, and that can be something to really put the focus on a specific area. So right now, if you look at this map, you have some toned down colors in the living room of pieces of furniture that are not that important anyway. But some clutter over here in a kitchen with a gray floor, that's something you might want to have very bright, because otherwise you get a very gray brown and you know, this metal kind of color kitchen, which is just a bit dull. So you have some varying degrees. I mean, you can always go like extremely to one side or the other. Red, and I'll put it somewhere over here, and you get this. Well, that's a bit too much, almost a kind of purple. We don't want that, so make it a bit toned down already. And you can always go like very toned down there to the left. And as you can see, like the right one would already be a chair that's that has been standing somewhere quite long. The fabric has either just lost its color, like it would in real life. If you have things stand in the sun, in direct sunlight, a lot of the time they lose their color. So it might be old. You can add in some blood textures or dirt or grudge textures to make it look dirty as well. And the middle one is, you know, somewhere between the two. Which brings me to the second value, something that I used with the bottles over here, which is the alpha value. And alpha value is something that not everybody knows is there. And it's actually quite useful to play around with. It's the bottom one over here. Most people won't, you know, usually use this alpha value when you're working in Paint or any other kind of tool. But when you're working on your maps, something it just turns your color translucent. As you can see here, you put it all the way to the left at 0, then it's 100% translucent. And if you you know, put it somewhere in between, you have this vague. It's a bit vague, and it shows through a bit of the grass or the object that's underneath. So what I use this for often is not chairs or pieces of furniture that are solid, of course. But the Forgotten Adventures team has a bunch of blood assets, and this is something I'll be showing off later as well. And you have two kinds. You have the red ones, and you have these spots that you can color. You can make them bright, you can make them brown, or red, or blue, or anything you like. So we'll put it on a brownish color, something that we like over here. I often, check it with the wooden floor itself to make sure that it matches more or less. And if you now turn down the alpha value a bit more, go a bit halfway there. I might even go a little bit further than this, depends. Yeah, like this. You can create like old patches of dirt, or perhaps somebody broke a bottle of wine or any other fluid over there. And you can use it on the outside as well to just create a bit more texture and some difference in flooring. My apologies. You can use it if you turn it like some sort of ashen black over here. You can use it as some coal dust or anything. And it's an especially useful trick to apply when, for example, you're working with your textures. You don't have enough RAM to unlock for more slots. You don't have a computer that's that good or that fast. Then you can use those kind of objects to just change up the color of grass or dirt. And you have a wild variety of different shapes and sizes. It also really works very well as moss on rocks or on the pathway over here. This is something that I'll go into a bit further when we're working on the outside, but it's good to know that this is an option that you have there. And especially with translucent objects like glass, they just look really weird and not how they're supposed to when they're just a very solid color. And while we're at it, I'm going to again change this a little bit to be more translucent than it was. Oh, that's not what we want. Let's go back, delete. Oh well, but you get the point. You can really play around with that alpha value, and I really recommend you try, because it lets you do very interesting things with grunge and grime and other objects, and it's not something you touch that you touch upon when you're working in DungeonDraft and you're not very familiar with that feature. So let's clean up this mess we made, and we'll continue with the house. I'm gonna leave the kitchen as is for now, and we'll continue onwards with the hallway and the living room. And we'll start with the hallway. We don't have much space at all, practically nothing, so it wouldn't make sense to put a lot of furniture in here, but we can do one thing, and that's place a stool. I use that as a sort of side table often. That's way big. We'll put it like all the way in the corner over here. There we go. And later we'll put in some shadows underneath, and perhaps, I don't know, a plant on top or something somebody needs to take upstairs still. Just to, have at least something going on in the hallway. But I think outside of this, we'll add in a light, and we won't have that much options right here. In the living room, however, we do still have a lot of options. I also want to put in a little stool as a side table over here. And now we're going to have to figure out what we want on the table and what we want on the cabinet. And when you do this more often, you start to develop some standard things that you can have on there. And I have a few different table layouts I use often. You can put on some playing cards and some drinks. You can put in some plates with food, like they're eating dinner. You can put up some papers, some a quill and some ink, like they're writing, or combine any of those kind of things together. I think that this time I want to go with a plate of food, and we'll add in a few papers and a quill and some ink. As if, you know, so one of them is eating, the other one is still working on something they need to have taken care of, some administration, or they're writing a book. Doesn't really matter. Oh, and I actually just recalled for right now, before we're gonna fill it up with a lot of clutter, is that I want to put this on layer 3. This is on layer 1, that's perfect, and that's the wrong one. And we're gonna put you on layer 2. And the reason I do this is again, when we are applying shadow pathways behind the chairs, and they're on the same layer as the rug is underneath, then the shadow pathways will disappear underneath the rug instead of on top of it. And we want them to be on top, of course. So we'll go for a plate. We'll add in the plate and that on the table. We'll put it on layer 4. Make sure it's the right size. And we'll just add some egg. We add right egg as if they... Fine. Here. And we'll add in a few pieces of bread. And I want to add in a little bit of color here as well. The white already does quite a nice job. But we want to have some of that salad that we had in the kitchen. Food. Here we have food. And we'll just make it a teeny bit smaller and put it in the middle. And now we'll take a fork. And a knife. These might look a little bit fancy, but oh well. And we want a cup in there because they're drinking and they're drinking wine. So we'll make this red. Proper red. Yeah. So you have already you already have somebody eating food. Now we still need some paper and other clutter. I believe we can find this here. Those are a lot of jugs. Ooh, these are actually new. And now I see them, I really like this. So I want it to be a paper. Those are too many papers. And we will add 1 or 2 things underneath. Go. And this is also something that might be nice. Maybe as a paper route or whatever, or he has picked up a few papers for a neighbor. Now we'll put something on the cupboard over here. A place where you can easily remember to take them with him. And we will find ourselves a few plants. Plants always do well. I make sure to have at least 1 or 2 in there. The wood too. Let's see how we want to do this. I think I'm going to put it a bit further to the back and next to the fireplace. I'll just hide it underneath a bit. Technically, this wouldn't be perfect, but I don't want to put it too far down because otherwise it would really obstruct the pathway to the chairs at the back of the table. And I know for a fact that we have this one over here as well. Something to help light the fire. We can just put that over here. We'll use some shadows to indicate that the bottom part is a bit lower than the rest. So always play around, reposition an object 1,000 times. It's just how I like to work. You don't have to do it yourselves, of course, but we'll add a plant over here, and let's see if we can maybe stick in a plant somewhere else as well. These are quite large, and I'm not sure if we want it. We can make them a bit, we can make them a bit smaller. Yeah, we will add this one, just a smaller one. Put it in front of the window. That makes sense to have. And we also see here a few brooms. And every household is supposed to have a broom. So put one over here. And this is just how I continue to fill up a house. I actually always do it like this. It helps to have an idea what kind of objects you often want to find in your living room and often in a kitchen, because that will make it easier when you do this more often to find the things you're looking for. I often have a bunch of rope laying around somewhere for no specific reason, just that it's become sort of a default item for me to put in there somewhere. And books are great as well. So we'll add in a book. Somebody's reading a book over here. We already have some green and some red. And a book cover only shows like a very tiny slither of the color on the side. So we'll take something a bit out of the ordinary, something blue, and we'll put it on the table there. I wanted the book to be a bit smaller. Somebody just left it there as they got up, so still open. There we go. And you could also add in a cup. Again, because when they're reading, they want to have something to drink, perhaps. You never know. We'll position it over here. And we'll just scooch everything over to a point where I like what it is. And also with regards to positioning objects, I actually mentioned it as well when I was working with the chairs here in the first video, and as well as I did here. It works perfectly to have things not aligned as well. Because if you keep things at the exact angle as, for example, the table it's underneath, like so, you can do this once or twice, but it will look very unnatural very, very quick. So keeping things at just slightest odd angle is a perfect way to make sure that it doesn't look like somebody has been putting things down on purpose, but just mindlessly, like you would do as well. So what we still need are some lanterns. And I want to have a few hanging up high and perhaps a few on cabinets and sorts. Lanterns used to be quite expensive back in the day, if I recall correctly, so we don't want to use too many of them. Also, it's quite a small house. During daylight, they will have during the day they'll have daylight coming in through the windows, and in the evening they already have light from the fireplace, and especially one over here. Maybe add a few candles here and there, but that would be more than sufficient for sure. And we will put one over here as well. Actually, I want it to be that. Go. And we'll add in some candles. Oh, before I forget, I want one. Let's put it over here. And we want some candles. For the candle color, I always pick a nice, like, yellow tint. Very close to white, but not all the way. And we'll just put this somewhere they can reach easily. And have a few on the table over here. And in the kitchen, it would make sense to have something to light the stove with as well. So, put it here. And we can add in a little light. If they're on, we'll make a day map for now, so we'll just leave that one on. And we already have quite a cozy house, if I might say. So right now I still want to add in a bit of clutter for the living room. I think I'm going to leave the hallway as is, except that we want to add at least a plant, something of a different color. And we'll put it all the way in the corner of the stairs on top of the stool. And maybe there's something else that piques our interest while we are going through this list. Not specifically yet. Oh, this always works well. You have a chair. Sorry, glasses. You have some glasses and perhaps a pipe. Because we have a sir that smokes in here. And we'll make this quite a bit smaller. Well, you have these houseplants, but another nice thing that you might want to do is take a plant pot. And we'll make it gray. Put it over here. And we'll go to plants and we'll take a fern or any other small plant that would fit well in a pot. Plants. There we go. These always do well. And we'll add in here. Some over there. And we'll take one and make that brown. Because, you know, not everything does well all of the time, and now I notice that I've messed up the layering a little bit. So we'll move that back one, and we'll move the pots also back one layer, and now I can position these underneath. There we go. All right. I'll add in a few other pieces of clutter in between, because I don't think it's that interesting to see me go through the list multiple times. I'll summarize what I have for you guys at the start of next video, and then we will continue onwards to placing the first indoor shadows and lights. So thanks again for watching. Please hit the like, favorite, or subscribe button if you like what you've seen. Also, if there's anything you'd like to see me do or go a bit more in depth on, please write it in the comments. I'll try to add in the next video, or at least as soon as possible, or I might add a different series of videos on a few specific topics that you have requested later on when we finish up this series. So thanks again for watching, and I hope to see you again in the next video.